What started as a peaceful morning jog turned into a full-blown national mystery. One man, one beach, one enormous unidentified object. And before he even caught his breath, the Army got involved. But before we dive into this jaw-dropping story, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you never miss our next unbelievable tale. Michael wasn't expecting anything unusual that morning. He liked his routine, jogging along a quiet, remote beach far from the city. The rhythmic crash of waves and soft crunch of sand beneath his shoes had always brought him peace. But today was different. Halfway down the coastline, something massive caught his eye. A hulking steel tube half buried near a sand dune. It didn't belong. Not here, not anywhere, really. Michael slowed to a halt, staring at the object. It was enormous, metallic, and weathered. Yet parts of it looked strangely new. He circled it, trying to wrap his head around what he was seeing. Then a sudden jolt of realization hit him. This could be something serious, maybe even dangerous. Heart pounding, he sprinted back to his car and dialed 911 with shaking hands. He could barely speak between breaths. The operator on the other end sounded skeptical. At first, she thought it might be a prank, some jogger out of breath and rambling about a giant pipe on the beach. But something in Michael's voice made her pause. He wasn't laughing. He was rattled. Eventually, she agreed to dispatch an officer, partly because it was better to be safe than sorry, and partly because she wanted to fine him if this turned out to be nonsense. Michael tried to explain what he'd seen. A giant damaged structure that looked like it had come from the sea, but not like any shipwreck or debris he'd ever heard of. He admitted it scared him. It felt wrong. And he was right to be worried. The operator asked if anyone else had seen it. Michael doubted it. This stretch of beach was remote, half an hour from the nearest city, and he was probably the first person to set foot here in weeks. It hadn't been there during his last run 2 weeks ago, so either it washed up since then, or someone put it here, quietly. Neither explanation was comforting. Michael didn't want to go back near it, but after some convincing, and his own growing curiosity, he agreed to return and wait for the police. Back at the beach, the object came into view again, hidden behind a sand dune. Even knowing what to expect, the sight of it still made his jaw drop. It looked bigger, more ominous. He walked slowly toward it, eyes scanning every detail. From up close, the pipe stretched far into the ocean, disappearing beneath the waves. There were no tracks, no signs of it being dragged. Had it floated here? As he got closer, something about the structure unnerved him. Parts of it were rusted, damaged like they'd endured decades of wear. But other sections looked pristine, like they'd just come off an assembly line, and then he touched it. Michael expected cold, hard metal. Instead, the surface felt like dense rubber. It didn't make sense. Could it have floated here? Was it part of a larger structure? A secret military device? A failed experiment? Questions swirled through his mind. So he did what anyone would do. He snapped a photo and posted it online, asking the internet for help. The response was instant. Comments poured in. Everything from UFO theories to secret government projects to underwater cables. Some ideas were wild, others oddly plausible. Michael kept refreshing his phone, chasing answers. The mystery was growing faster than he could keep up with, and then the police arrived. Michael expected maybe one cruiser. Instead, multiple units rolled in. Officers stepped out, serious-faced, moving with purpose. They didn't treat this like a curiosity. They treated it like a threat. Within minutes, they cordoned off the area. Crime scene tape fluttered in the breeze. Radios crackled. More units showed up. The beach transformed from a quiet, forgotten stretch of coastline into an active investigation site. An officer pulled Michael aside for questioning, wanting every detail, what time he found it, if he touched it, what it felt like. They didn't say much in return, but it was clear. They knew this was no ordinary beach debris. Michael watched as they blocked off access to the beach completely. Helicopters hovered in the distance. Reporters began to show up. His phone buzzed nonstop. What had he found? Soon Michael's post went viral. News stations picked up the story. Online sleuths dug through satellite imagery. And then, things escalated. Despite the police telling him to stay away, Michael couldn't resist returning to the scene. This wasn't just some strange object anymore. It was his discovery. But the beach was no longer deserted. It had turned into a media circus. Reporters, cameras, bystanders, all desperate for a glimpse of the now famous object. Police struggled to control the chaos. And then Michael's phone rang again. A blocked number. The voice on the other end was calm, knowledgeable, and chillingly specific. The caller knew what the object was. Michael handed the phone over to the police without hesitation. Seconds later, they ordered a full evacuation. The beach emptied in a panic. Even the reporters were shoved back as authorities formed a perimeter. Something serious was going down. Not long after, a team of experts arrived. They didn't hesitate. Wearing gear and moving with precision, they began attaching the massive structure to a waiting tugboat. It was clear now. This thing had come from the ocean. The experts confirmed what Michael had suspected. It was maritime in origin. Part of a construction project, they said, lost during a storm. But how it drifted unnoticed to this remote beach remained a mystery. As the tugboat pulled the object away, the beach began returning to normal. Michael stood quietly, watching it vanish into the horizon. And just when he thought the story was over, representatives from an overseas transportation company held a press conference. They explained the pipe was part of a massive international infrastructure project, a rare piece of cargo, lost weeks ago in rough seas. They never expected it to make landfall, but it had, right at Michael's feet. A morning jog turned into a global story, a simple photo into a viral phenomenon. And Michael, just an ordinary guy, had uncovered something extraordinary. He wasn't looking for fame, but he got it anyway. And now, every time he runs that beach, he does so with the knowledge that sometimes the most unexpected stories begin in the quietest places. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this mystery, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell, because you never know where the next story might wash up.